Once again, extending a formal welcome to all of you to this Natural Helpers series of sessions that are being presented by our friends from the city of Portland, Maine, and the Office of Economic Opportunity. We're very grateful to them for putting this series together for us. Today's title is from from idea to impact, the story and structure of the fellowship. And we're going to be joined by a number of individuals today who are going to be sharing some information with you. But before we get started officially, do want to introduce myself to those of you that may not know me. I am Anthony Salas, the events director with Welcoming America. And just a few quick housekeeping items to note for you. The session is being recorded, and before the end of the week, we will be sharing out the full recording with you, as well as any resources that are referenced during the presentation today. On the Welcoming America website, we'll actually share with you as well. We have created a landing page specifically for this series, and each of the 6 sessions that are part of the full series will be added there as they are recorded. But again, we'll share all of that with you post session today. If any of you are using any sort of AI bots, we will remove those because we are going to be providing that recording for you. So just note that if you would. And then in terms of communications, if you have any technical questions or need anything help-wise for the Zoom platform, please use the chat area. And content-related questions as the presentation goes on, I invite you to use the Q&A feature and enter your questions there. We encourage you to enter them as the presentation goes on. When your question comes to mind, go ahead and enter them in there, and we're going to get to Q&A at the end of the presentation. We'll get to as many as time does allow there, but again, fully encourage you to enter your questions as the presentation goes on. And again, as I mentioned, we are very pleased and honored to have our friends from City of Portland, Maine, Office of Economic Opportunity join us for this full series. They've put in a lot of time and effort into creating the content that you're going to receive through each of these sessions. And very glad to welcome back our 2 leads for this. Melissa who is the director of the Office of Economic Opportunity, and Aram Guptill, who is the curriculum facilitator, also with the Office of Economic Opportunity. And again, very pleased to have them back with us once again. And with that, we're going to jump into the content. I'm going to turn it over to Aram.
Hi, everyone. Welcome. It's so great to have you all joining us today. Thanks for taking time out of your busy afternoons to join us. As Anthony mentioned, my name is Aram Guptill, and I work with the Office of Economic Opportunity as project specialist. I also have the opportunity of being the curriculum facilitator, one of the co-facilitators for the Natural Helpers program. I'll also let my boss, Melissa Hugh, introduce herself.
Hi, everyone. For all of those of you who are returning, welcome. And everybody who is new, we're happy to have you. I am Melissa Hugh. I'm the program director, AKA boss. And I'm so lucky to be able to share the screen with Aram Guptill. And we're lucky to have a very exciting webinar for you guys today. We have a few of our natural helpers who are here to speak from their perspective of the program. And maybe this encourages you to get involved and create one of your own. So I will actually pass it back to Aram to get us started.
Great, thanks, Melissa. So thank you all for being here today. I wanted to start with a quick recap of what we spoke of at our last session, which was 2 weeks ago. Last session, our first session, we were really focused on why is the Natural Helpers program important? Why is this fellowship important for this day and age? During that time, which the video is available for those who are unable to see it, you're welcome to go back and take a look at it. We talked a little bit about what is a natural helper, how natural helpers are members of our community who are already present, are already doing the work very informally. They're the ones who are creating change, strengthening communities, strengthening connections, and removing barriers for those in their community. The other thing that we talked about is we reflected on the own natural helpers in our own lives, those who have made a change for us in the way that we view the world and the way that we've accessed the world. And after we talked about that, we discussed a little bit about what happens when all these natural helpers can come together. We talked a little bit about how collective action really amplifies impact. It's important to note that, of course, individual support is incredibly effective, but we see these tremendous changes occur when impact is seen across sectors through different organizations and different systems. Today, we're going to continue that conversation a little bit more. We're going to move a little bit into talking a little bit about the history of the Natural Helpers program with the city of Portland. One thing that I really want to note is that participants don't become natural helpers by joining the fellowship, but really what we do is we give them more tools, networkings, and support to expand the reach and to make more effective what they are already doing. So today we will talk a little bit about the history of the program, how it started out and where we find it now. We'll discuss a little bit of the core requirements of the fellowship. We're going to do a short critical thinking piece from our curriculum. And then lastly, we're going to wrap up by talking to a couple of the alumni and really digging into this idea of how a cohort-based fellowship shifts power to the communities that they represent. So I'd love to pass it to Melissa to tell us a little bit more about the history of the Natural Helpers program.
Great. Thank you, Aram. Great recap. So the Natural Helpers program actually started back in 2020, and it was emulated from the Natural Helpers cohort in Lincoln, Nebraska. And then we brought it here. It was with my predecessor, and she actually worked with Welcoming America to develop this toolkit around the program. At the time, there were 3 cohorts, and we had 36 graduates. But the program only lasted for about 4 days. So it was a 4-day workshop, 2 days here, 2 days there, where communities were resourced with everyone who was willing to participate. And then they were sent on their way to help their communities. Now, as you can imagine, I sifted through the feedback, and a lot of the feedback was, that's a lot of great information, too much, too fast, not enough time. And they're correct. There's only so much you can absorb in 4 days, and then there's only so much practical application that you can do after that. So when I took the role, I have a background in public health, and I worked in hospitals for about 3.5 years in advocacy for different nonprofits. And also, as mentioned before in our last webinar, I was raised down south, and I was the daughter of an immigrant, single mother, who had to interface with different categories, different barriers, and different challenges that the Natural Helpers idea was trying to overcome. So I decided at that point that this needed to be a full-blown fellowship where people got the time to work together in a cohort, critically think, and also to tease out resources. Some of the findings were that, 1, people did not know how many resources were in their community. 2, people didn't know how to leverage their resources. And 3, people didn't know whether resources in their communities were still active or not. So I think a lot of you have clicked on a website and then you found out that this resources is either overwhelmingly used and they can't take any more people, or they're no longer active. So those were some of the things that were happening. And then we decided to allow workshops for every single resource that we were doing. And these workshops were about an hour long with presenters. And we critically and intentionally picked the sectors that we wanted to resource our natural helpers in. So environmental justice, the blue economy, immigration, and things like that. One of the most powerful things I think we talk about with our natural helpers is you actually are the experts in the room and you're challenging these systems with your expertise. So never come into a cohort feeling like you're being talked at, but you're being talked to. And when you're being talked to, this is your opportunity to show your expertise and make sure that these systems understand where you're coming from, understand your community, and understand the barriers that these systems may be causing, even though they have the proper good intentions. So far, we're leading into our third cohort, and we had two cohorts with 23 graduates, and they've been absolutely amazing. If you check out the last webinar, you'll see some of the impact that some of them have created thus far, and it's been astounding to see ourselves. And this has nothing to do with, honestly, our curriculum or the creating of the ideas of this fellowship. It has everything to do with every individual getting their needs met and being pushed and challenged to be more confident in their approaches because they're all doing the right things at the right time. So next slide. I actually love the core of the fellowship and all the elements, but I think it's better being heard from Aram because he uses this on a regular basis. So I will pass it off to you, Aram, to talk about these elements.
Yeah, thank you. So like Melissa kind of teased, the program was really expanded from 4 days into a 4-month long process. And I would say it is rigorous. It is a challenging fellowship. I don't know if the fellows fully understand what they're signing themselves up for when they sign up. It'd be kind of funny to ask them later on in the Q&A. But really the idea is to provide them with just a wealth of resources, a wealth of connections, networking, immersive experiences that they can then take back and give to those that they're working with and influencing. So the fellowship really begins with applications, which, as an exciting side note, opened today for the 2026 cohort. We really rely on applications to come in from former natural helpers who are nominating those that they might be interacting with in their own community. We also reach out to local nonprofits and organizations as well to source new applicants and to receive nominations. There's really no big requirements to join the natural helpers. Really, the only two is someone who is really willing to put in the work, who will show up and who will then take what they learn and pass it back to their community that they're a part of. And then the other one, a little bit more logistics, all of our program is done in English. So there does have to be a certain level of English language skills to partake in it. But really outside of that, we're looking for folks who are committed to really affecting the community that they work with, that they're a part of. The bulk of the fellowship are 8-hour sessions every other Saturday. And primarily the bulk of this is critical trainings. So we focus on different themes that are really pertinent, really important to our fellows, whether that's housing access, domestic violence prevention, police relations, things like this, to kind of create the bulk of these critical trainings. We start off every session with a training, we start off every cohort with a training on power and systems, which we'll be excited to kind of give a small little presentation of today about that. All in all, the fellows do over 60 hours of experiential and educational trainings with community nonprofits, government organizations, and local businesses. This includes a meeting with really influential leaders in Maine and in their networks. For example, they have the opportunity to meet with the mayor of Portland, congressional staff, elected representatives, CEOs of businesses. But I think it's really important to note that with all these trainings, there are maybe one directional conversations, but as Melissa mentioned, a lot of the work that we do is really expanding these conversations into cohort member to cohort member, right? So how do these conversations affect what's happening on the ground in the community that the folks are working in? A fun part of the fellowship is the cohort development certificate. So we partner with a local university, the University of Southern Maine, which does an 8-hour-long leadership training. So that way, at the end of the fellowship, every fellow gets a certificate from the local university. And they receive just a wealth of knowledge and leadership training. Additionally, they do about 6 to 8 hours of personal narrative work with a professor from Bates College, tapping into how their personal narrative reflects their leadership style. Another core element of the fellowship is advocacy opportunities. So at the end of the fellowship, each fellow has the opportunity to speak to their city council about an issue that's of importance to them. This is something that they work through during the fellowship and culminates in a last project. And there have been some incredible, if you were here last week, you heard of some incredible story that came out of that, a multicultural festival in Bangor, Maine, with the full support of the city council, which was incredible. The other part of the fellowship really surrounds networking. We partner each fellow with a mentor that's in their field, someone that they can ask advice from, learn from, and then also share about their own experiences. We will be honored to meet with one of those mentors actually in our December meeting, which will be great. They also do additional check-ins with the co-facilitators to help kind of check in about their growth with the critical trainings throughout the run of the course. All right, as I said, it's rigorous. There's a lot of things that I list off. They do, I think probably the funnest part is these immersive experiential activities. So a lot of the work that we try to do is rooted in joy, is really rooted in creating connections among each other and recognizing that there are places that have maybe historically been off limits or hard to access for certain members, for certain community members. Things like downhill skiing, horseback riding, just opportunities that bring around collective joy. You know, it's Portland, Maine is located right on the ocean, and it's so common that a lot of our fellows actually have never really been out on the ocean. So taking part in waterfront cruises really help expands the amount of resources available in our area and creates just a nice, joyful experience. Each fellow, lastly, has a few charges that they have to do. They are charged with doing 8 hours of community volunteering, really outside of any volunteering that they might already do. Helps to bridge more connections with their community, and helps them network as well, meet new people. And then the bulk of their charge is what we call the Impact 5 Teach 10 model. So this is where we ask each fellow to take the connections that they've made, the resources they've learned about, the information they've gained, and bring it back, share it to their community. If you were here last session, we talked about what a little bit of these impacts look like, right? It looks like finding housing for members of their community, providing support for those who recently lost their job, helping folks who might be facing issues of substance abuse, finding them the resources and the connections that they need to better themselves and their lives. And then lastly, each fellow receives $1,000 in impact funding. This is funding that they can take with them to continue to do the work that they're doing in their community at a much larger scale, much greater scale. And both of these things, the Impact 5 and the impact funding, are things that we'll be chatting more about throughout this series as well. So that is a quick rundown of all of the aspects of the fellowship. Like we said, it is a very busy 4 weeks, very rigorous, but as we mentioned, our goal is to really provide as much resources as we can to these fellows that then they can then take back and give to those in their community. I think it's also important to note that really every aspect of this fellowship, from the trainings to the mentorship to the impact funding, is all rooted in trying to collectively shift power back to the community by intentionally redistributing access, resources, and influence to people or groups who are often excluded from decision making. I think it's also really important to mention, and this will come up a little bit in our question and answer session, that we really believe in creating a strong cohort that is really diverse, diverse in age, language, culture, background, because we find that by creating this space where different ideas can be shared, it really strengthens our ability to think critically about issues that we're experiencing in our community. On this topic of thinking critically about issues in our community, I'm going to pass it back to Melissa to tell us a little bit about one of the very first critical thinking pieces that the cohorts do on the very first day.
Great, thank you for that, Aram. And the program does feel very rigorous. I remember sitting in my office creating what I thought would be just, you know, a flowy program and submitting it to our department head. And she goes, "You think people actually do this amount of work?" And I said, "You have no idea the amount of work that they do on a regular basis. This is going to be nothing to them." And they prove me right every single time. So we thought it would be very insightful to take you through a short synopsis of some of the curriculums that they go through. One of them is one, again, near and dear to my heart because it's the only time I get to be a part of the workshop. It's the only time I get to present and provide some type of education to the fellows, and that's through understanding power systems. So this is an important understanding, and we take a video from Eric Liu to teach about the basics of power. We show this video, one, for folks to understand how to label power in the most simplistic ways. And we find that once you're able to do that, you understand how to pull power or leverage power in your community. Two, we wanted them to understand the power that each of them hold. And that is a very important conversations with folks. I remember in one of the cohorts, one of the fellows said, "You know, I'm just a banker. I don't hold any power in my community." And we were just like, "What are you talking about? You manage money. You hold all the power." And those moments are very insightful, and those moments are very eye-opening for people who just feel like, you know, they're doing all of this work, but they still can't shift systems. So we're going to take you through a brief 3-minute video. And while you watch this video, I want you to think of your own communities or moments where power was yielded. And as you're watching, try to apply these 6 pillars or these 6 frameworks where you saw this happening. We do this exercise every single time. It takes a lot more because we show different videos where fellows have to remain neutral. It's interesting to see how emotional people get when they watch power being yielded. And the exercise is for them to remain neutral and just label consistent power moments that they see in every video, and find the commonalities in everything before we address bigger power systems at B. So I will have Anthony roll the tape and take a deep dive.
Every day of your life, you move through systems of power that other people need. Do you sense them? Do you understand power? Do you realize why it matters? Power is something we're often uncomfortable talking about. That's especially true in civic life, how we live together in community. In a democracy, power is supposed to reside with the people, period. Any further talk about power, and who really has it, seems a little dirty, maybe even evil. But power is no more inherently good or evil than fire, or physics. It just is. It governs how any form of government works. It determines who gets to determine the rules of the game. So learning how power operates is key to being effective, being taken seriously, and not being taken advantage of. In this lesson, we'll look at where power comes from, how it's exercised, and what you can do to become more powerful in public life. Let's start with a basic definition. Power is the ability to make others do what you would have them do. Of course, this plays out in all arenas of life, from family to the workplace to our relationships. Our focus is on the civic arena, where power means getting a community to make the choices and to take the actions that you want. There are 6 main sources of civic power. First, there's physical force and a capacity for violence. Control of the means of force, whether in the police or a militia, is power at its most primal. A second core source of power is wealth. Money creates the ability to buy results and to buy almost any other kind of power. The third form of power is state action, government. This is the use of law and bureaucracy to compel people to do or not do certain things. In a democracy, for example, we the people theoretically give government its power through elections. In a dictatorship, state power emerges from the threat of force, not the consent of the governed. The fourth type of power is social norms, or what other people think is okay. Norms don't have the centralized machinery of government. They operate in a softer way, peer-to-peer. They can certainly make people change behavior and even change laws. Think about how norms around marriage equality today are evolving. The fifth form of power is ideas. An idea, individual liberty, say, or racial equality, can generate boundless amounts of power if it motivates enough people to change their thinking and actions. And so the sixth source of power is numbers, lots of humans. A vast mass of people creates power by expressing collective intensity of interest and by asserting legitimacy. Think of the Arab Spring or the rise of the Tea Party. Crowds count. These are the 6 main sources of power, what power is. So now, let's think about how power operates. There are 3...
Anthony, I think we're going to stop it right here. And I think that we will be linking the full 7-minute video in the webinar, or as potential assignments for anybody who wants to watch it any further. So when we show this video, it's a very strong reflective piece because we don't think of power usually in the realm of ideas and social norms. We kind of think of it as, one was mentioned, physical force, maybe numbers, maybe the government. But once we address these 6 pillars of power, we kind of do a labeling exercise to see how do we increase, decrease, move through systems that have consistently oppressed people, or move through challenging systems that you're facing in your everyday work. So this could look like a woman of color being oppressed at work through processes and having to challenge the process, and labeling the systems to identify the process. So I think for a later assignment that we might hand out, I'm looking at both Anthony and Aaron to confirm, we will have you do reflective pieces where we take these notions and you go through the journey of challenging your own systems of power. Like I said, through the course, we typically show what I call shock therapy videos and ask people to remain neutral and find commonalities or common themes that occur when labeling these pillars of power. I hope that was a little bit of a reflective piece for you and got your minds going a little bit. I am happy now to move on to our introduction of our natural helpers, who will be joining us today and talking about their experience as I probe them with thought-provoking questions. If you see any of them sweat, don't be alarmed. They're used to this. So I would love to welcome Ethan Shrestha, our 2025 alumni, and the wonderful Carla Muniz as well, our 2025 alumni. And I have a few questions to answer them, and we will have a short period of time for Q&A for you all to ask the questions that you're interested in as well. So welcome you both. And you can unmute yourselves because this question is going to be for the both of you. One of the questions is actually, what made you want to join the Natural Helpers Fellowship, and what was the value of going through this whole program with your cohort?
Yeah, I'll start with first, Carla. My name's Ethan. I am a Mainer, born and raised, and I hadn't really been too involved in my community to start with. I managed a property out here. I'm part of the West End Neighborhood Association in Portland, but I hadn't really volunteered too much before, so I was looking at different options out there, and just seeing the word natural helpers sparked my interest because I had always felt like someone who offered a hand and wanted to help. And like Aaron said, I did not know what I was getting myself into. I'd say the value of the program was going through with a cohort was getting to see all these different community leaders act how they do and how they volunteer themselves in a public setting, how they present themselves in the fellowship each and every Saturday that we met up. I think that was extremely influential to how I am today, getting to see how each of them shows up and acts for their community. I think that was insanely just developmental for my leadership abilities. And even now today, we like share resources with each other over like WhatsApp. So we're all part of this group now. So getting to connect with each other as a cohort during the fellowship led to us all being connected after the fellowship as well.
That's great, Ethan. Thank you. Carla?
Well, thanks for the invitation. It's great to be here, share my experience, and my story is kind of funny. Well, I moved from Peru 3 years ago, and actually I found natural helpers because of UTI. Yeah, you heard right. I was supposed to take my own sightseeing around Portland, but instead I ended up in the ER, and that's where I met Victoria, who was a nurse, who just happened to be a Latina like me and a natural helper. So we clicked instantly, and she invited me to her graduation at Natural Helpers. I had no idea what she was talking about, and I just wanted to support her because she was so contagious. She's just a vibrant personality. And what I found there at the time, I was feeling, also disconnected. I feel like I had left my purpose behind in Peru. When I moved from Peru to Maine, back home, I was running a nonprofit called WEMPO, which is short for We Empower, with my husband. And we were working on underserved communities, partnering with organizations, creating a real impact. But here in Maine, I feel like I didn't know where to fit in. I was living in this like kind of peaceful, beautiful bubble. And honestly, I thought there are urgent challenges. Here, everything seems fine. But that graduation ceremony at Natural Helpers flipped totally what I was thinking. I saw people who looked like me, who spoke different language like me, who were doing like powerful, like amazing work in their communities. And I thought like, wow, then I had to join this program. And then next year I was there. It was real magic. We were from all over the world, speaking different languages, cultures, and live different experiences. But we shared this, all people there, we shared this like deep desire to serve. And through them, I think I started to see what I hadn't seen before. I heard like firsthand stories about housing insecurity, fear of the partition, language barriers, mental health struggles. And I realized that I was living a parallel world this time since I moved here. So I was not the only one anymore. And it just felt home. Being part of this cohort, it really changed my life and didn't just make me feel like seen, but it opened my eyes. It grounded me, and it reminded me that leadership is just not having a voice, but it's about listening deeply, showing up and standing alone and alongside others in solidarity. So Yeah, it's been amazing, and then this opportunity of also having like these introspections that we were mentioning earlier with the workshops and taking the time to pause and reflect and ask myself honest questions and be vulnerable about it was amazing and really grounding for me. So it's a little bit of what I lived.
That's amazing, Carla. And I can firsthand say Carla always spoke with vulnerability first. I think that was her superpower in engagement. She was actually one of the speakers for a series called Suitcase Stories in Portland, Maine, where she talked about her journey. And actually, she is quite funny. I don't think it was meant to be as funny as she thought, but you had me dying, Carla. But Carla, tell us a little bit about how your leadership has changed through, the leadership skill certification with University of Southern Maine, the narrative workshop with Bates, and just standing on the platform with City Council advocating for your community.
Yeah, that's a great question because, sorry, was Ethan or Carla?
Carla.
Okay, yeah, that's a good question because, I've gone through so many leadership programs, even at Penn State, and I thought it was going to be just one more leadership class, but no, not at all. So I really thought that this would stand far beyond any other leadership program that, you guys were addressing in a different way. I think through my life already, my leadership like style has been evolving primarily from just goal-driven business major economics to more people-centered in the past, and I focus on outcomes, strategic plans, and it led me to outcomes, but also in a sustainable way, not having fun or enjoying what I was doing. So I think like now I lead with more humility and curiosity. But something I learned really from this program was the concept of servant leadership. I love that concept, that it's a style that flips that traditional model rather than leading from the top to servant leader prioritizes the needs, the growth, and the well-being of others. It's about listening deeply, empowering those around you, building community through trust and care. And this is where I feel comfortable. That's the type of leadership I'm trying to be intentional when I'm doing workshops or outreach or any space I'm trying to create. I try to lead with empathy, humility, and commitment and uplifting others. Just to hear that concept existed make me feel reassured, and more intentional about what I want to be. And it's not important, like the outcome, but the way you deliver those outcomes when you work with people. So that's definitely like a big shift on me after the program.
Thank you, Carla. And you're touching on one of the key principles of natural helper. When we do applications, we do look for people with a genuine heart of servitude, and you definitely exemplified that. And Ethan, you also exemplified that as you mentioned before, a true Mainer. And this cohort was extremely diverse. And with diversity comes strength, but it also comes with complexities. So, can you talk about being a part of a diverse cohort and challenging complex conversations, because people are coming from different backgrounds and different beliefs, and you're all meant to be unified together. So, tell us a little bit about that experience.
So coming from Maine, a majority white state, I didn't really have much experience being involved with minority communities. So for me, coming into this room, I felt like I had a lot to learn. I was sitting with people part of the, Hispanic community in Maine, the Burundi community, the Eastern European community, and the LGBTQ community. And I was hearing about problems that I just hadn't heard about before. So just being there for me, I got to expand my worldview every Saturday. I think that was one of the best things I could have even. That's something I didn't even think of when I was signing up for the program. I'd say, really interesting things that came up were like the differences and understandings between the communities. Like at times we talk about, the protests going on because it was early 2025. We had like police come up and what the dynamics were with that. And so having to explain to someone who maybe thinks that police are someone who should be accepted at protests, why maybe they're not going to be accepted at every protest. That was a conversation that was welcomed and not just shut down. And with our cohort, I'd say we went about it in a way where we wanted to respect everyone's opinions. And that was all set with the premise, I think, that Melissa and Aram and Lauren said at the very beginning, which was, this is a conversation. This isn't, us talking to you, telling you how it is. This is you guys bringing your experiences to the table.
Thank you, Ethan. Yeah, we definitely let you guys challenge yourselves, and everybody came back the next day as great friends. And we were just like, well, this is how we do complex dialogue in America, right? Carla, this question's for you. So the city of Portland is a certified welcoming city, and we are proud of it. How has this leadership cohort helped expand that idea that the city of Portland is a welcoming city?
Well, I'm pretty sure there's like the spectrum, the way Natural Helpers is helping to make Portland a more welcoming city is broader. But I would like to speak from my perspective of Hispanic Latina. I think I didn't realize when I moved here or before Natural Helpers how many Hispanic people were living in Maine. I truly thought I was the only craving for salsa nights and dancing and ceviche and stuff like that. I think through this program, I met people who share my roots, people who understood my culture and welcoming to others. And I also learned from other cultures, like Ethan was saying, like people that were like coming from other parts of the world. And some of them were fellow Peruvians, some of them were from other continents, from Africa, from other parts of Europe, and others were Mainers too, who love traditions or Latin traditions. So that was possible because Natural Helpers introduced me to all this community, or through Natural Helpers that at the same time introduced me to other Natural Helpers. So not only I wasn't the only the only one speaking Spanish at gatherings or celebrating Latin holidays. I was dancing again through all the resources they were sharing, laughing in my native language, and reconnecting with this part of me that I hadn't felt in a long time. That made such an impact in my life, because I think I was going, maybe I didn't notice, a cultural shock, and I didn't realize how important it was to reconnect with my roots. But the most meaningful part, I think, also the chance to support others. I think in just a few months, I think just to being able to work alongside with other Hispanic communities or members, helping them access jobs, health services, resources, trying me like to reconnect with my purpose again. That also helped myself in some way. So I also joining forces with local leaders to host workshops on immigrant rights and other important topics. And I have the privilege also to mentor other Hispanic women, referred by Natural Helpers on just topics from housing, transportation, or starting their own business. I think like it makes me feel like that I belong to. So for me, like Portland feels more welcoming now in a way, and not because things magically change. I think because we're showing for each other, we're trying to build trust within each other. We're sharing stories and creating spaces where everyone feels seen. And I know there's a ripple effect. Maybe it's quiet, but I think it's very powerful. So I totally think there's a great impact on this program, and how welcome it made me feel. And try to make for others too.
That's beautiful, Carla. And I agree with you with everything you said about all of the work that you guys put in trying to provide for the community. But also every cohort has this wonderful theme. And I think this cohort was definitely dancing. After 5 o'clock hit, everybody was on the dance floor till God knows when. I was so appreciative of hearing the stories after. But just a way to express joy, especially when it comes to your own culture. So this question's for Ethan. How do you see collaboration across sectors or community groups strengthening community development?
And by sectors, do you mean like the groups we met with during the fellowship, or do you mean like different neighborhood groups?
different neighborhood groups, the groups that you met with throughout the fellowship, and also the organizations that participated.
Okay. Just the ability to learn about the different resources, I know have helped cohort members extremely, just seeing in the group chat how they share the resources that they have. It seems like they're bettering their communities every day. Me personally, we as in the West End, I got to attend this neighborhood leader summit with the natural helpers a few days ago. I got to see neighborhoods get together and talk about what they're doing in their own communities and see the different things they're doing to kind of better their neighborhood. So collaboration with them means hearing about maybe a repair group that they started that means that an older person who can't fix their heat, their dehumidifier, can bring it to this repair group and get it fixed. And if the East End is doing that, maybe the West End can start something like that too. And if they're starting a garden club over there too, why can't we do it over here? So something like that has just been really eye-opening for me. I think going into my West End Association meeting tomorrow, I'm thinking about bringing that up with them and seeing how we can start other kind of groups like that. And I can only imagine that with all the other cohorts, with all the other fellows in our cohort, they're like expanding their network each and every day.
That's amazing. And I think during times of uncertainty and when you don't know where resources are, we get kind of academic about what community development looks like. And I think both of you gave examples of how it just centers around people helping and assisting and being as creative as possible to remove barriers and stressors for those who can't help themselves. And that can be in a way of organizing neighborhood programs or in a way of just leading the community and showing resources where they might not see them. So that is also a strong form of community development that I fully stand by. Can you both share an example of how you used your life experience to create community impact?
I can start. So this is I would like to start with a story, and this is the first time probably I'm sharing it out loud. But after, cohort, after the graduation, one of the most meaningful relationships that I built this year is with Don. Because I just suppose his name is Don, but it's not. He's a 90-year-old man with terminal cancer and diabetes. I remember I received this phone call in May, but late May, and he called me that he was abandoned by his wife. She was left without transportation, financial security, or housing, and he was facing homeless this November. And probably before, natural helpers, if he had called me, I wouldn't know what to do. I would have say, okay, I really wouldn't know what to do. But all the challenges on what's facing, aside from the most important thing was loneliness. I think was the most urgent. He was deeply isolated and experiencing depression too, and frequent panic attacks. And what he needed most wasn't just services, also was connections. We're talking through our conversations. Also, I discovered that one of his lifelong passions was writing. So that's how Poetry Night was born out of the blue. So I know nothing about poetry, and I created it as a excuse, as a part of a support system. And I shared at the natural helpers group. In fact, some natural helpers joined, but it was just an excuse, to gather, to connect, and to give him something joyful to look forward to. And now we meet every second Thursday with a small group of 9 people. And Don has been writing again. He writes short vignettes, reflections, and he's getting out from that depression. For my birthday, he gave me one of his pieces as a gift, a small vignette story, and it meant the world for me, and remind me that healing can happen in community, and the creativity can be just like a lifeline. But thanks to the research I learned about natural helpers and other fellows, I was able to connect Don with social workers and a lawyer. The social worker actually secured him assisted housing, and he'll be moving into his new home on November 14th. So I'm so grateful. his pain was my pain. I was like every night, okay, what's gonna happen? And just supporting Don has shown me how powerful it is to simply show up for someone. You don't need to do everything. It's just there's resources and there's all this information people you can tap to offer dignity, compassion, and hope. And that experience, along with everything I learned through the other helpers, just reassure me and reaffirm something that had already been growing inside me. And you know what I'm going to say? This desire to help others in a deeper, more intentional way. And that's why it inspired me to bring WEMPO back to life this time, really in May. So we have officially, launched WEMPO USA, which stands for We Empower, and with the mission of to serve people and help them drive, and in a more scalable way. And we're still on early stages, but this is my way of saying, okay, I don't want to just be one person. I want to be more Downs in my life that I can help. And yeah, we have our first outreach in Bangor, through this natural helper program that was led by with the Multicultural Festival in Bangor, and we had a WEMPO table in, and we connected with 30 people and gather insights with community, and try to understand what are their more pressing needs. And this is just a little example of how natural helpers have changed me and have reassured me on my mission, and reconnect me to what I'm good at. So yeah.
Oh, that's beautiful. That's beautiful. You guys aren't crying. I'm crying. That's beautiful. Ethan, can you close it out for us?
Yeah. Life experience wise, I didn't really grow up with anyone telling me I should go to church and build purposeful community. So I really tried to do my best to, in my adult life, say yes and build purposeful community. And I'd say since doing the Natural Helpers program, not to just plug you guys during your plug, right? But I'd say since joining, I've been able to be confident myself and say yes to all these opportunities that have come by my plate, and push myself to do more and more. Someone in my community reached out to me, since we have 3 communities in our block that 2 of them are affordable housing. The one I run is mixed income. It's market rate, workforce, and student housing, a lot of international students in our building. And they came to me and they said, we did this community potluck in downtown Westbrook, a town over from Portland, and we had a great turnout. We think we should do it here. And so I took it from there, and I contacted this nonprofit that puts on a storytelling potluck, and I got them to come out. And I actually reached out to the OEO first, because I was like, okay, I know who has my back, and I can always reach out. I know I can always reach out to Melissa, Aram, Lauren, Carla. I know I can reach out to you guys anytime I need something. Not anytime I need something, but because I know that you guys will be there to motivate me and have my back. And Lauren was extremely helpful in just empowering me. And I'd say Lauren would even say this: she didn't even have to do much. She just knew that by being there for me, I was able to just pick up all that slack that I knew I was worried about. And we were so worried about getting the attendance we wanted, but by the end of it, we filled all 60 seats at the table and had a storytelling potluck for all these mixed income communities that couldn't sit down with each other, because in this day and age, you just don't do that. And they were all telling each other how much we needed this and how much we wanted to be doing this. So that I'd say that was the biggest thing I've done, especially since Natural Helpers program, to bring my community together. And they all talk about that to this day too.
Ethan, that was an incredible event, one of the most diverse events Community Plate has ever had. And it was all thanks to you and your leadership. And thank you both so much for closing it out. I think a theme that I want everybody to leave with is everybody's experiencing some type of dark time, right? And there's levels to this. And sometimes to get through darkness, it's not to succumb or become complacent in it. It's just to find the light. And when you find the light, stand firm in it without negotiation. And I feel like the light that we bring forth is through Natural Helpers. Ethan is a light, Carla is a light, and we have about 50 more lights that are walking around dark times, looking for people to stand firm with them. So I hope that you take that concept back. And I think you guys brought a little bit of light and information to all of us today with your stories, and we appreciate it more than you know. So thank you. And we are actually running at time. It's 2:59. And I know folks may have questions, And I know we have a closeout, so bear with us for maybe 3 extra minutes as I pass it off to Anthony to tell us where we should go from here, because we do want to be respectful of your time.
Thank you, Melissa. I appreciate that. Ethan and Carla, I thank you doesn't even cover it. This was an amazing time to share with you both, and I appreciate you sharing so honestly. Those stories were amazing, and I really do appreciate that. Yes, we are right at time, and we do have some questions here. I'm going to address one. I think here's what we're going to do. I'm going to address one question in the interest of time for everyone. But I'm going to invite everyone that is still on. If you do have a question that you haven't entered yet, send it to me when I send you the recording. Let me know what your question is. I can take this back to Melissa and Aram, and we will follow up with you. This is, again, something that we're all doing together and we're learning together. So we will keep this conversation going, even outside of the hours that we're spending here in these individual sessions. So I will remind you of that as part of the follow-up email. But yes, again, please do feel free to do that. But the question that we do have here, and I'm going to open this up to whoever wants to answer. Individuals saying that for immigrant residents in their community, they found it difficult to empower individuals who have felt like they are historically marginalized. So the question is, how do you instill confidence in those individuals to take part in these leadership programs and these cohorts like the Natural Helpers programs?
Yeah, so I can open it up. It is very scary during this time. I'm not gonna lie. Some of our previous applicants were scared of, immigration showing up, were scared to leave their communities. One of the biggest things that I believe in is speaking power into people. And if you have folks with the drive and the want to, and they are just succumbed by fear, one of the biggest techniques we do is just speaking power into them and creating a space where they can thrive in safety first. Once they feel safe, then they move and then they become as vulnerable as a Carla and an Ethan in that cohort. So if you have folks around, empower them a little bit. Tell them about their own strengths, build their confidence with them, show them what they don't see in themselves, and then usher them into a group fellowship such as this. And I will let it open for anybody else that wants to add anything to that. And I do think also that the journey is very important for every natural helper. These outcomes aren't reached in a day. People just don't magically wake up and say, I'm confident. I wish they did. That would be great. But it is a part of the journey. And we just wait and see how we can help meet the needs of every individual and then watch the outcome. But I would love for one of you, Ethan or Carla, to take it.
I just want to say that if you run into some people that is interested, I would really encourage you to join. This was one of the most welcoming groups or group of people I've met ever. And it came to the point that when it was about to finish the cohort, we didn't want to stop coming there. It was our moment to vent, to talk about our challenges, to exchange opinions, resources. It's something it was a great place to be at. And we were all super busy already with our own challenges and work, but at some point, I think we all felt like we needed it. And after that, we were like, okay, what's next? So I think it's just one of the most welcoming spaces I ever felt. And the warm was since day one that made me come back over and over. So I just want to add that.
I would love to add something to that as well. I wish that whoever asked that question could meet our Darlene or Belviga, because just how empowered I knew that they felt by the end of the fellowship and how much more they spoke up by the end of the fellowship and how I know they became leaders in their own self and how much they took action in their own community. I know that they would say, find your Aram, find your Melissa, find your Lauren in the community and have them put their warmth into you. have them put their warmth into the fellowship so that they feel backed up. Because I know that if we didn't feel backed up by Aram, Lauren, and Melissa, I don't think we would have had as good of an experience as we did. So if I'd say the warmth that they really brought to the fellowship is why I know I felt so comfortable being there, even if I felt tired. It was 8 a.m. on a Saturday, right? I felt tired. I felt dumb. I felt like I wouldn't bring any value to the fellowship, but I still showed up every time and gave it my 100%. So I'd say that was the biggest thing for me. And I know every fellowship member would say the same thing.
Ethan, that's a great plug for our next conversation coming up in December, which is titled Caring for Natural Helpers in Our Community. And we're going to be talking a little bit about the role that joy and the role that these immersive experiences play in the fellowship, and also the importance of publicly acknowledging the work that everyone is doing in the fellowship. We'll also have we'll be talking a little bit about burnout, which is really prevalent. I mentioned how rigorous this program is. Both Carla and Ethan mentioned about all the other things that are going on. So how do you prevent burnout, especially in this day and age in the world that we're living in, when things are just so fast paced and there's so many issues coming at you? And then lastly, we'll have the opportunity to meet with a few mentors and talk a little bit about how deepening relations with mentors, with networking, with connectors really helps to broaden and support the natural helpers in the work that they're doing. So we're really excited to continue this conversation with all of you in the future. Thank you so much for joining us today. And we look forward to seeing you on December 9th for the next conversation.
Excellent. Thank you again, Aram, Melissa, Ethan, and Carla. This just was a wonderful hour, and I'm very honored that you all took the time to join us today and share. And think I probably speak for everyone on here that we're really excited for the continuation of this series. This has just really been a wonderful, wonderful thing that I think really helps all of us as we go through this. So thank you again. I did also just put into the chat our events email address there. So to my statement earlier, feel free to keep your questions coming. If something comes up, after we end today, you have a question, shoot it over to us at events@welcomingamerica.org. I will pass this on to Melissa and Aram, and we will follow up with you. So we will keep the conversation going. Hope to see you all, as Aram said, on December the 9th for our next session. And again, thank you, each of you as participants, for taking time from your day to join us today. I hope the rest of your week goes really well. And again, we'll see you in December. Take care, everyone. Thank you so much.
Thank you, everyone.
Thank you. Bye.